welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Today I've got Amy Hehman with us, who's just new to the firm. What, about a month, 2 months in now?
Almost 2 months.
Yeah, right.
Unbelievable.
Who leads up our expanding HR support services group, Fractional HR Services. So I wanted to spend some time with you today just to kind of, I know why we did this and why we're making this investment, but I thought it'd be good for you to share with our clients and the marketplace in general. Tell us a little bit about our HR support services, the type of, for someone that's never used these services before, what would they expect to find?
So what they could expect to find is a managed service line where we would support HR functions, the typical discipline of HR functions on a part-time or interim basis. And so when they had a particular need, perhaps they didn't have the appropriate resources or they did not have a fully built out team of HR professionals or practitioners, we could come in and help support them at various levels.
Right. Yeah, because we think through some of those. Again, I'm running a business, growing a business, and then there's a variety of reasons people might need this type of fractional part-time services. Whether it be the company's growing rapidly, and they just don't have enough of what, or they're, a lot of times it's the business owners kind of wearing all the hats, but they're sophisticated enough, they've grown enough where they need it, or they've had a departure of someone that's left. So we can fill all those roles, right?
We can. I think, so when you think about human resources and what we do, you think about a life cycle of an employee. And so there is the, first of all, identification that you need a position or you need a workforce. What does that look like? Then you have to actually source for that individual. So that's the talent acquisition piece. And there's a strategy that goes behind that. What are you actually looking for? What should you target in the market, for example? That individual is onboarded and developed within the organization, managed within the organization, if you will. So you're thinking about things like training and development, learning and development, HR business partnership, and then potentially the person's offboarded. So, again, think about the life cycle of an employee, and along every step of that life cycle is something that, our services can help support. Could be at various stages, think strategic. So what does the plan look like? What do we need to focus in on? Think about the operational with the day-to-day. You think about things like, policies, procedures, employee relations, again, training and development, and that administrative piece, which is really more of that payroll and benefits and compliance can span through all of that, but it will definitely hit the organization at different levels throughout the life cycle.
People talk about, so we've talked a little bit about fractional and help the client or someone that's considering these services better understand the difference between what that support services or fractional services are versus a consultant, and a consulting project.
That's a great question. So consulting typically is external. It's more external, it is more high level, and it's more project driven. So they may come in and, for example, a organization may say, we're looking to redesign our compensation structure or a compensation plan. And they're very focused on that particular deliverable. They could come and go a little bit more so from an organization. When you think about fractional services and what we're offering at Dennig, it is a partnership with leadership within the organization where we become embedded in that culture of the organization. We design our services based on what the client needs. We meet them there and then we scale with them. We can dial it up, we can dial it down, but we become very embedded in their culture. And so we're part of their team. It's ongoing. Now, if a client said, hey, we want you to come in and do, design our talent acquisition strategy or design a leadership program, absolutely. That might be a one and done, but it is a one and done that we can do.
Sure.
And we're even more positioned to do it because we know the culture.
We can actually be your resource internally embedded in the organization, or we can augment or supplement the talent that you currently have. You don't always have the right people at the right time. So that's kind of the difference between the fractional and the project-based. There's clearly value to have their own HR person in-house, but what I've always felt is equally valuable is you in your travels, you're not working with one client or one industry. You're because of the firm and the advisory firm that we have, you see a lot of different companies and the way a lot of different people do things, and you can bring that broad-based experience to their situation.
You can really, and you know, a lot of people will say, well, what's the perfect client, or what does the perfect client look like? And you know, it's the perfect client is who has the need to have added HR support. It's almost like it doesn't necessarily matter the size. I find that fractionals for Barnes Dennig is probably going to be in that, you know, 100 or under, you know, in terms of just headcount if you're thinking that way. But it's not necessarily always about the numbers when you're in the HR space, because if you had a client that was at 300, for example, but they didn't have a succession plan in place, or maybe they needed someone to come in at a higher level and take a look at their organization and say, you know, you could better allocate work, and in doing so you might need a different level of talent in order to produce, you know, better business results specific to the HR function, that then you're going to see a different ROI on that.
You know, I think a lot of people think of HR as a big headache at times, you know.
Sometimes,
and they don't,
and sometimes it is.
Yeah, I know. And they don't connect it to the growth of the business. You know, there's a difference in best of class companies that look at HR as a necessary evil to those that look at it as an investment to maximize business growth. That there's a direct connection between HR, a robust HR strategy, and their growth and success. So can you tell me a little bit, or tell everyone a little bit about how, you know, effective HR strategies really drive business growth?
So, okay, again, great question. If you've got, if you have a great HR plan in place, and you're thinking about how you're going to attract your people, how you're going to develop your people, and how you're going to retain your people, that is all going to show up in your business results as well as your ROI. And again, you know, you just think about, you know, do you have the right people in place? Do you have constant turnover as a company that you're dealing with? What does your time to hire look like? If you don't have a high level of retention, then you obviously are going to have a high level of turnover. And along with that, you're going to be so focused in on replacing the people in order to run the business that you're not focusing on how to push the business forward. And so I think that, you know, there are a lot of different metrics that HR contributes to that would have an impact on the business, whether it's the cost of their hire, whether it's time to hire, time to fill, quite frankly. And I think about engagement as well. And engagement's a really big one, because if you don't have the right people and the right processes or the right initiatives and leadership involved with an organization, you've got a whole host of issues really that you're dealing with that will affect morale. And we all know what happens there is that our attention turns in on what's going on within the people of the organization, that we're not really focused in on, you know, the business growth and how to advance the people within the organization.
That's great, because, you know, again, everything you said there is so much, it's deep in strategy, engagement, and I think a lot of times people think of HR as checking boxes and forms and do we have the right documentation, and all that's important, no question, but you know, in this day and age when it's really, I don't think I have a client that says I've got too many people. They all say I don't have enough people, and the way to at least fight that battle is to do everything you can to develop, engage, and give them the environment to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know, you have to look at it as well from, I think one of the things that HR does really well is we help managers be successful. And part of that might be through, you know, learning and development platforms or training or even coaching. And from a fractional HR, what we do here at Barnes Dennig is we will coach at the highest level. You know, situational, but in my time here, my short time here, I've been, you know, coaching presidents and coaching executives, high-level executives in the C-suite. You know, again, just on what that approach could be to help either one mitigate risk or to get the most out of their conversations with individuals. And really even to just take a different look, start looking at things from a different lens, which is, if you can create a group of managers and your own leadership team within an organization where their number one job every single day is to create an environment conducive to success, then you've just basically, started to develop this idea of a manager-first approach, and you've given them a lot of resources to be able to elevate their teams and their people with accountability.
So, help the viewer. When do they, what is the triggering point, or why? How do they find you, or what's the process to engage in fractional or HR support services?
So in terms of reaching out to us, of course, you can do so on
the number's at the bottom of your screen.
The number is at the bottom of the screen. That's right. But our website, website's a great way, or they can always, reach out to us here direct through our marketing team, our marketing channels, LinkedIn, of course. But the way that they would actually get started with us is just really, truly a conversation. If they say, I might have a need, or I think I might have a need, if they don't know for sure, or they don't know exactly what the need is, that's okay. It starts based on a conversation. So what are the most critical items for them, or what's important for them? And then having a discussion, just a simple conversation. And then from there, we would identify, maybe 2 to 3 things that they wanted to focus in on. Have myself come on site, typically for 2 to 3 hours, and really review or better understand what those challenges look like and what the goals are of the business. And then from there, it's about us putting together a resource plan of what that could look like. And a resource plan is not just a one-time thing. We can dial things up, dial it down. But again, it's a flexible model. Managed services fractional HR is a flexible model. It's what the client needs, when they need it, how much or how little. And just because you start in one place doesn't mean that that's where you're going to end up. Our job is to really make sure that the client is operating as efficiently as what they possibly can, that they're compliant, and that they have all of the resources at their fingertips for themselves as a business and their people to be successful.
All right, Amy, sounds wonderful. One of our goals at Dennig is to help make our clients' lives easier.
Yes.
And I can think of no other area that we can make our clients' lives easier than in the HR space. So great to have you on board. Excited to see what the future holds for us. So
thank you, Jay. Thank you.